It is 7:45 here on this Friday morning, and at this time, we always turn it to Friday with the Fuzz, so I'll toss it over to Mr. Michael Greene.
Thank you, Derek. I am joined in studio today with the Chief of Police from the City of Elgin, Jeff Swoboda. Welcome, Jeff.
Good morning.
You are in rare form today. In some of our pre-show prep, you're just
ready to go.
One-liners.
Ready to go.
You're on fire today.
On fire. Trying to stay warm.
Well, speaking of fire, staying warm, weather, right? Got to be the number one thing to talk about. Can you talk a little bit about the weather, how it affects the police? I mean, driving and road conditions and things like that. Elgin, in my experience, tends to be better than just about any other town. You know, I come down from Huntley, come through Algonquin, like in the hills, Carpentersville.
I second
on
that.
my way down.
I come from east.
The Elgin roads are always better, but they were still slick this morning. You know, so you're not in charge of the roads as much as I try to make you be. But 7 accidents Chrissy's reporting that she's aware of this morning so far, and that's in the last like 2.5 hours. You talk about just the weather conditions and not just driving, but how it might affect pets, the elderly, special needs folks. Just there's a lot of people out there that this can really affect.
Yeah, everybody's waiting for this to kind of break because it's been very, very difficult, I think, on everybody. We'll start with just the general conditions of just when it's this cold and how much that affects people. I know there's been calls for assist to people out who've been out shoveling snow or salting and get the cold weather overtakes them as well. And so I know our fire department's been busy as well, and police department. But in general, our calls for service are related to cars sliding off the road. I know we've had multiple ones this morning. You mentioned the 7 crashes we've already had so far this morning, and part of it is the slickness of the streets, and then when you get a little bit of snow over it, and then the blowing of the snow over the roadways, it's tough to see where patches where it might look slick or where it actually is slick and you can't see it as well. So it's just everybody needs to just slow down, take caution. Even though you're doing that, it's still very, very difficult. So officers are staying very busy with it. And then it adds another layer of making it difficult for the officers. You're getting out, you're doing an accident report, you need to tow a car or do something, you're out of the car for an extended period of time. I mean, that gets very cold on that. So making sure that the officers have the proper breaks as well, and so that if they're out directing traffic on a major scene or something, after so many minutes, being able to rotate officers through. So it's just, everybody working together, police, fire, public works, everybody, chipping in when something's going on, conditions that need to be addressed immediately. I know I talked with the public works director, making sure we have quick access when officers are out driving around and see that one area is very slick. We're able to get that in right away to the snow command, and they come by and make sure they all ice it right away so that we can maybe prevent future accidents from occurring. So that's kind of it from the busy side. We'll always have the things when it's this cold, people warming up their cars and leaving the keys in it, and we've talked about this ad nauseum. We're just don't do it. Yeah, it's one of those things. I get it, people want to warm up their car, but you need to have a remote start or a second set of keys where you lock your keys in the car and don't just leave your keys standing there when you go back inside, because people are very cold if they're out walking around. So like most crimes, crimes are that of an opportunity. Somebody walking by and sees a warm car and says, you know what, I still got a 5-block walk, I'm going to hop in the car and drive it borrow it and drive it a few blocks, warm up, and then get out. I know we have cases every year with that, and it's tough to get the stolen vehicle charges sometimes when the person's really just saying, I just needed to warm up. My hands were ice cold. I got in there, drove it a few blocks, and then got out of the car. I didn't damage it, wasn't trying to sell it, didn't want to keep it. I just needed to warm up. So, just reminding people. I know it seems harmless, and nobody's out there. It's really cold, so who would be walking by? But people do. Some people will be out there on foot. So don't warm up your car and leave it running like that. That's dangerous. So we'll get calls about that. On Wednesday night, was able to stop by the emergency warming shelter here in the downtown area, and they were very, very busy. I think they said they had maybe 40 people there.
Overflow, yeah.
Yeah, they still have room. I don't think that they were at capacity. They're set up more to be an emergency warming shelter, so the amenities aren't as much as having a full-fledged shelter type of thing. But it's enough for people to go in and warm up, and they were preparing food for everybody, and so it was a very nice event right here, just a block away from here, 2 blocks away from here. But it was there's a lot of people out there who don't have homes, and they were warming up in the shelter. So that was just a reminder again as far as this cold weather impacts so many people. And then lastly, we'll just hop on with people that whether they're elderly, whether they're maybe had trouble paying their bills and you don't know if we want to make sure they have their heat on, type of thing. Just make some phone calls or stop by. Or if you can't call us, we'll go stop by. If you have a family member or somebody or a friend that you haven't seen in a while and you're not sure and you haven't gotten in touch with them and you want to make sure they're okay, that's what we're here for. So as long as we're not overflowing with other things, crashes are going to take precedent, but when officers have time, if there's we need to go check on the welfare of somebody, we'll absolutely do that for you. So call us if you need us to check on somebody, but hopefully this is going to break soon, right? I think maybe this weekend, at least get it to 20 or 30.
Yeah, better than, -5 or -10 that's been. I know you have your crime stats coming out for next year, coming out next week.
Next week, yeah.
Do you see, and I think we may have talked about this past years, do you see a dip in crime in this type of weather? Are there just a totally different set of calls that come in as opposed to you don't have a breaking and entering, because really who wants to be outside at this point?
Right. Yeah. We'll have different types of calls because one of the times going back a couple of years we had the major snowstorm. It was beginning of February. I think it was 2 years ago now, or maybe 3 years.
Last year, maybe too.
And crime for a couple days was very low. There wasn't anybody out walking around. When nobody was out breaking the cars, and most of the cars that were parked had they were covered with snow. I mean, you couldn't get into the car. So crimes will change. When it's really cold like this, more people will stay inside. So if they're staying inside, sometimes family members get on each other's nerves. There might be arguments, so there might be more domestic calls. So it does change. We talk about the summertime, how when the nicer weather, everybody goes for more walks. They go on their bike more. They go for just a cruise in their car. That cruising around, and you run into people maybe you wouldn't normally see, and so then sometimes there are fights that occur from things like that. So it's not responsible for the crime, but definitely during a torrential downpour, we're not going to have a whole lot of calls of loud party. It's just common sense, not a lot of loud party calls. So it does change. And overall, and we'll be reporting next week. We're still just finalizing the numbers, getting all the reports in. But we've been talking for a couple of years now how low. We've been using that 43-year low, 44-year low. We're right on the edge of it's either going to be flat or potentially up a little bit. Hopefully, violent crime, and like I said, we're still getting them together. Violent crime will be down, but one of the crimes, and we always talk about the Part 1 crime, which is the most serious crime, and within there's a subset of that called the violent crime, and that one I think will be down again, but I don't know. I can't say for certain. We're like I said, we're just waiting for all the reports to come in. But the one crime that's going to push us up this year is going to be retail theft, and we're going to have, I think, well over 100 more retail thefts this year than last year. So that'll push our overall Part 1 crime up compared to the year before. So it'll still be low compared to over the past number of years and everything, but we're still watching that. But that is the one crime that is up dramatically.
Are the retailers changing their reporting or when they call you? Because I know a lot of times it varies by retailer when they contact the police. I can speak from experience that I used to work for a retailer that you never called the police for anything under $50. And technically by law, shoplifting could be just simply concealment. Where working for the retailer, they wanted that person past the last point of purchase. It doesn't necessarily have to be. So are retailers changing how they define shoplifting at all? And maybe that's where some of the numbers are changing, or is it just simply you get more calls?
Well, part of it is over the past year or two, we've got new stores. So there's, the new Walmart is out there, Sam's. So that's part of it. Retail theft in general, seeing that there are so many more, I don't know that it's the change in tactics, but I will tell you that we have been working with our retailers. In fact, yesterday there was a merchant meeting, we call it, and we bring in all the loss prevention specialists in Elgin, and they all come together. And so the goal is that, and I also worked loss prevention before I became a police officer like you, and I remember putting out kind of a bulletin to neighboring stores. I worked in a chain store as well, and so you'd let the other stores know that we just had an attempted one.
This is how it went down.
Look for this group,
Yep.
right. So now we're able to do that, and we're able to, we do it once a quarter. We have the meeting at the police department, and they come in and talk and see what they're seeing, what are some of the tactics that they're seeing used, if there are specific people, who are the people that they're seeing, what types of groups, are they coming in large groups, small groups, people with kids, that type of thing. And then as far as how we're working with the merchants as well, is also changing location of some merchandise if they can. Some of these big businesses, they've got a way that they do it, and
right.
You just kind of like push it back to prepaying for gas. We used to have a lot of crimes of drive-offs from gas. Now we're virtually solved that crime, and we solve that crime because we make people pay for it before we don't, the business owner. But we used to do 10 reports a week on drive-offs. And so what we're doing with the merchants as well is seeing if we can change the location, putting things like small, expensive items like razors is always a very expensive item, putting those behind glass or locking them up so that you have to get some assistance in order to do it. And then lastly, some of the things that we push, that we ask, and again, they have their own tactics, as you know, that dictate, corporate policy dictates it, but if you can prevent a crime, we're looking at that as a positive as far as, instead of, okay, you see a guy getting close, well, let's watch him, instead of, some people in some stores have the idea of turn up your radio, walk up to that person and say, hi sir, do you need some help? Can I help you? Do you need help with that item? And let them know that you saw that item, and hopefully, wow, I'm not going to steal this item. Versus let's wait and let's catch them later type of thing. So we are working with them on that because it is very draining on our officers, I can tell you, on the manpower. Because not only are most of these occurring up on Randall Road, so you figure on an arrest, an officer gets dispatched out there, by the time they investigate it, drive back to the station, write the report, book and process the person, let them back out.
A couple
hours off the road. And so now those neighborhoods that are up there, at least that neighborhood around there, if that's where the beat officer's from, they don't have a beat officer. That officer's down in an arrest. And it's happening at least one a day. I think most times it's multiple times a day. And so we really need to get on. We had a meeting 2 days ago, and one of the things we're really looking at is retail theft. And do we need to change our response as far as how we're dealing with retail thefts and how much time we spend on packaging evidence? And let me ask you, when you guys had it, did you package your own evidence and save it, or did the officers take the evidence with them?
Usually the officers, and sometimes the village or the city dictated what they did, where they had to keep it, and then we had to go once a year and inventory it to see what they still had there against our records of what they took.
Mm-hmm.
Other departments, other cities that I was in, all they wanted was a photograph or whatever, and then it was free to be resold.
Right, and that's what we're looking at as well, because right now, many times we're taking the evidence, we're taking the space, we're bringing it down, not to mention, the merchandise, once the case is done, exactly. Then when the case is done, you guys can then, or not you guys, but the business can then mark it up for sale if it's last year's items or whatever, and get it on the shelf right away, versus the bureaucracy of coming down to the station and waiting for it. So we're working through all those things, and at our meeting we talked about, January is a great time. We all look at everything in our life. At least I do. I mean, you look at your bank account, your health, how often you're working out, all the things. I said, let's look at everything we're doing, because in policing we've been very good, especially in Elgin. I'm proud to say, when more stuff comes in, we'll say, yeah, we'll do it. We'll try and do this. As we're going to talk about a little bit of EyeDrive, physical fitness, self-defense courses, all these things, National Night Out. We're doing so many things out there. But are we getting a little too thin in some areas? Are we trying to do too many things? And so we're really trying to push it down and make sure we ask the officers, and we did it through the supervisors, what are the things that we're doing right now that maybe there's a little bit of mission creep going on? We don't need to be doing that. And it's nice that we do it, but we just can't do it anymore, because in policing you need to do these 25 things perfectly, right? You got to be right every time. So you better good with your weapon, know the law, all the things that an officer needs to do. And then these other things are nice to do. And so you don't want to ever get to a point where you spread out all the things you're doing so wide that you're average at everything,
losing, right.
And you're not, an expert or perfect at this. And so that's what we're really looking at to see. It's great, and I'm the worst, I'm the worst offender for. Yeah, let's try this. Yeah, let's try that. And each one of those times we do that, it takes somebody to do that, right? Sure. So we're looking at that in January. So one of the things we're looking at is retail theft, and saying, you know what, do we need to spend 3 hours on every retail theft that comes in? And a lot of times, if it's just a minor offense, it's not going to go to court. It's going to be pled down, and the person's just going to take the hit and some community service or whatever. Now, if it's the third or fourth time, it's going to be a felony. Maybe we do need to do more with it. So we're looking at retail theft because it is taking a lot of time and energy.
Quickly, I wanted to talk about, I know there was a report of some solicitors. I don't know about these solicitors particularly that were referenced this week on your social media sites, but can you talk about solicitors just in general? Again, what are some of the things to look for? What types of identification can they have? What is okay to ask them to do or not to do, or what can they do or not do? And then I also wanted to speak about, you've got EyeDrive coming up, if you can talk to that, and we've got like a minute.
All right. Solicitors need to be registered with the city. So if you're ever answering the door, but first of all, if somebody knocks on your door and you're not expecting anybody and you don't want to talk to anybody, don't answer the door. And if they keep pounding on your door, call the police. We'll come and find out what they're doing. But if you open your door, and hopefully there's a breezeway where you maybe have the storm door locked or something where somebody can't get in, and they start asking you things that you didn't ask for. One of the ones recently was talking about an energy bill, and what's your energy bill? Maybe you overpaid. Nobody's going to be walking around in this weather to figure out if your energy bill is over or under what it needs to be. So probably in 15 seconds is just, they need to have identification right there. They generally should be parking where you can see their car. But even so, nowadays you see a white van or a white pickup truck with a yellow light on top of it. That could be anything from a snowplow driver to, an auto parts dealer that's driving around. So,
with the city, they have to register and they have to have some type of
they have to have
identification.
With them. Absolutely. Yep.
Is it just a sticker?
No, it's an identification that they hang around their neck, and if you don't know, you can call us, and we know where when they're in town. And many times, Crystal even put it on Facebook that we have this group out here at this time. We don't want to let everybody know because then we can say if you're a thief, you can say, oh, this group's out here. I'm going to say I'm part of this group,
right?
And then so that's part of the reason we're not super proactive with it. We just say, hey, they are out in the area. It's when we let the census workers know that they're out here. So just be careful, and if you don't know, call us. Don't answer your door because we're getting all kinds of scams. EyeDrive is something that is coming up here. I think it's next week already.
14th.
Yeah, and we're excited to try it for the first time. We don't have a whole lot of people coming in. I think we're close to maybe 10 or 15 coming in, but it's our first time trying it. You know, every one of them can't be the home run of the self-defense. The self-defense we sold out or whatever within an hour or two. This one is really geared towards UPS drivers, cab drivers, taxi drivers, anybody that's going around and they drive Elgin all the time. Well, they might see things that are like, that's suspicious. Oh, this is going on. They might have just as good of a understanding of what's going on in the streets as the officers who are out there working on the street. So we're meeting with them, maybe better.
They're not off the road for
exactly.
3 hours writing a report for a retail theft.
And so this is just meant to say, here's how you report a crime, here's what to look for, here's how to be a good witness, here's some technology that can help you along your way. And it's a quick hour class, get together, and again, it's just to try increase some communication with them. So we're happy about that. And then lastly, you said was a couple things. CP AAA, thank you to them. On Wednesday night, I stopped by their meeting. Bill Wolf was giving a presentation to talk about, we're looking at doing some bricks in front of the police station for our retired members and for supporters of Elgin Police Department can buy bricks. So it'll be a nice event, more to come on that. And CERT, registration starts on the 10th of February. Our police department's community emergency response team, and they do all kinds of great work out there helping us all the time on accidents or after a blizzard, after a major crash, after we've had issues with, when trains hit a car and they come out and they help direct traffic. They do so much. Our CERT team members under Karen Flanagan, just a fantastic group of men and women, really help out the Elgin community every single week. And they are always having meetings as well. So a lot of great stuff going on, and I think I hit on everything, didn't I?
That's a good weekend. That's a good week. Everything? Yeah, you got everything, I think. Right. We'll talk about you got a new thing where you're spotlighting an officer. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit more next week. And I saw that in the paper as well as on social media. That was kind of a neat thing. And
Craig Arnold, one of our officers, was on it. So yeah, it's a nice thing to get people to learn about their officers. So, and we got a new canine here right now. So.
Well, be safe. Everyone drive carefully, please. Don't make more work for yourself as well as for the officers. And
we would appreciate it.
Man, just slow down.
Slow down, stay warm, stay
off.
Safe, and spring's right around the corner. Pitchers and catchers report.
February 19th.
There we go.
There you go.
This
is the year.
We'll see. Well, you're listening to M1410, WRMN.
And Elgin.